Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Woolwine, and today we are in great company. We got Mr. Dallas Dash in the building. How we doing, my friend?
Doing all right, man. Man, blessed with no stress, man. How are you?
Uh, you took the words right out of my mouth. Blessed and no stress is the perfect way to put this. I'm super excited to get you on. I've
Yeah,
heard
man.
great things from my friend over at CCP Podcasting, Chris Page. He's shed the brightest light on you, and I cannot wait to see what's in within that light. You know what I mean? So before we dive into your wrestling career and your fandom and what really brought you into this business, would you like to shout out your social medias and even upcoming events that you've got coming up in January?
Yeah, man. You can go follow me all platforms at Dallas X Dash. Um, I have a event next week. It's my first event of the tour. Not with CCP, but my first show with One Division Pro. And I'll be going up against Rochie Roach for the 1DP World Championship. So
Nice.
yeah,
I've had Rochie Roach on, great
yeah,
guy.
seen that.
Real quick, like we'll dive right into that. How did you kind of get in the mix with One Division Pro, and what's it like, going for that top spot against Rochie Roach?
So this opportunity just kind of got brought up to me by Chris. Him and running with One Division Pro. They're like you know close allies.
Yeah.
So um, the opportunity was brought up to me, and yeah, man, I'm was kind of the closest call. So that's what made me want to even consider doing the show. But Roachie Roach, I've been seeing a lot about Roach and. Like when they told me, who I was working, I'm like, no brainer. Like, let's do it. Let's go ahead and make that happen.
I think the coolest thing about Rochie Roach is, I mean, for one, he looks like an absolute star,
Yeah,
and I really just like, for one, where he got his base, where he got his fundamentals, learning underneath Amazing Red and
yeah,
House of Glory, and now seeing him come up and hold the One Division Pro Championship, and he's really holding that championship at a high level. I'd have to imagine that Dallas Dash wants to be the one to take that title from him and to be able to hold, One Division Pro up in the air and take it to new heights.
yeah.
Let's say, in theory, at the end of this, you walk out champion. What does that do to your mindset? How do you go about leading a traveling brand uh, as the world champ?
I'll be at the top spot. I mean, I one thing about it as a professional wrestler in the independent scene, like that's what you want. You wanna be that top guy. Um, just being in that spot. I mean, of course, 1DP has to be a priority, but CCP 1DP. They like I said, they're real close allies. So I mean, I'm pretty sure Chris won't mind me being a top guy over there. So
Definitely.
yeah,
Just to dive in, I know as to get in this business, whether you're a wrestler, a fan, a podcaster, whatever you may be, you got to be a fan of this. You got to love it. It's got to be in your heart somewhere.
yeah.
How did you find wrestling? Was it something that's always been there? And do you have a moment or a piece of time that just made you really say, you know what, I love this. This is something maybe I could see myself doing. Just break that down for us.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I'm a second generation wrestler.
Okay.
My dad, he kind of started out and just going to his trainings and watching him do did for a long time. It that definitely was a spark in getting into the actual business. I mean, I've been a wrestling fan for a long time, long time. Um, and to pinpoint one moment that like I was like, all right, this is it. This is what I really want to do. Coming out of high school, man, like coming out of high school, everybody wanted to play the sports, basketball, football, baseball, soccer. But I just wanted to be different. I felt like I always was different. So like that, it was a no brainer. I say around like high school. High school, I kind of was like, okay, I'm training. I'm getting better. Like I know I can compete on the highest levels. So I mean, hey, let's take this leap of faith and just see where it goes. And luckily for me, like it took me to new levels, man. So I'm just appreciative to be in the spots that I'm in now.
Absolutely. I know, like, for me personally, my pops is a big inspiration behind what I do, and somebody that really
Yeah.
pushes me to elevate myself and the podcast and platforms to new levels. What was your dad's reaction when you told him, "Hey, I want to follow in your footsteps. I want to try this professional wrestling thing, and I want to be a star"?
I mean, I feel like he kind of knew. He kind of knew. It wasn't the biggest reaction, but I think now he would probably feel like if I was to ask him now, he would probably be like, "Man, they're like, you're doing your thing. You." He always tell me just continue to work and block out the outside noise and just focus on you and focus on just getting better every single day. So yeah,
It's really cool for you because you hear so often about second, third, fourth generation
yeah,
wrestlers coming into the business, and maybe parents steer them away. They're like, "Hey, don't do this."
yeah,
It wasn't something like that I wished upon my family. It's really cool that you get to have that affirmation that you're doing the right thing. Um, was there ever any moments that, like, people in your inner circle or your family had doubts about you coming into the business?
yeah, man. I would say people were more scared, just because I'm literally 5'8", 175. You got guys out here 6 foot two something. So it's just like I think it was more of that, like just just scared of me competing on these levels and going up against these guys and they just didn't want me to get hurt. But I feel like it got to that point now where that's kind of blew over. They like, man, yeah, you're good. You're good to the point where you can compete with all these top guys and stuff. So yeah, I think that was the biggest like kind of like moment scare for them, just being in the business. So
Definitely. And like it's a very competitive sport. It's a very
yeah.
unpredictable sport. So I get you. I get you 100%. I'd have to assume growing up, your dad's going to be one of your favorites as far as what you're watching, what you're consuming. No.
No, that guy was a horrible. Hey, look, honestly, my dad was probably one of the biggest heels in Virginia
Oh,
at the time frame when he did start, and not only just because of his character, his gimmick, but just he was running a promotion, and a lot of people just didn't give him that credit. A lot of people didn't give him the affirmation that he deserves, his flowers, just for even competing against these other promotions and stuff. So it was it was definitely like he was the probably one of the most hated guys, but that just all made the character, it made the character what it is. So yeah, no, he wasn't one of my favorites, man.
no.
That dude was horrible. He was a horrible human being, man.
Who were some of your favorites then? If Pops doesn't fit the mold, who was?
Um, back then, like I said, I grew up in the industry, so it's just like I had my favorites on the indie scene. But like if we talking, WWE, around that time, like I said, I grew up watching Kofi Kingston. I grew up watching Tyson Kidd. I grew up watching Finley. So it's just like those are some of the guys that like just kind of gravitated me towards wrestling a lot more. So
Are there any of them independent names that you were watching back then that are
yeah,
now
man.
really
Around that
big?
time, Ricochet was like he was at the top of his game. So I would say Ricochet. I've always been a fan of Tommy N, Aleister Black, if
You gotta
y'all
love
don't know who
Tommy
that
Young.
is.
Yep.
And Coco Cabana was just one of those ones that was just like brought the personality to wrestling. So it was just like that. Those was kind of like my top three guys watching growing up.
It's really cool because, like, I live out here in the Chicago area, and I've really
Yeah,
since starting the podcast been able to dive deep into Chicago's independent scene. And you bring up Ricochet and
yeah,
Colt Cabana. Those two guys have been like pivotal
yeah,
in the success of the Midwest Indies, especially like you look at like IWA Mid South and things like that.
yeah.
So it's really cool that you got to see them guys on the rise, and now we get to see them guys on national TV almost every week.
Yeah, man.
Besides Colt, we should probably get some more Colt out
Got
there.
to. Gotta have some more coat, man.
um, you just we've talked a little bit about your fandom, senior pops running promotion. For you, being a kid around the business, were you able to see behind the scenes, or did your dad try to keep that curtain closed so you was maybe more blind to the business and could just enjoy the product?
So back then, I would say yeah, he kept me away from a lot of that stuff, but he was so heavily into it, it just kind of like fell on me. But it was good for me to know that part of the business, only because now I know how to move when it comes to talking to a promotion, or when it comes to talking business, talking travel and all that good. So it it fell on me, but it was a good fall. It was more of just me knowing, like, okay, what and what not to do in the industry. And yeah, it helps me out a lot now, working with people and not working with people. So
So growing up around your pops' promotion, HCW, correct?
Hampton Roads Championship Wrestling, yes.
Growing up around them and maybe being acclimated with the roster, what was the reception whenever you decided to start training?
So I started my training when I was 8. I'm 24 now. I'll be 25 this month.
You're a
Well,
vet.
25 this year. I'm sorry. So around the time frame when I started training, like I said, I was training with the grown men. So it was just like nobody took it easy on me. No,
No?
nobody took it easy on me, only because they knew for a fact that I could have a potential one day. Because everybody starts training, if not now, at a young age. And like I said, around that time, I got so close with the roster because they treated me like, little bro. And, I looked at them as, the guys who I looked up to. So it was more of just, a brother relationship. And I got so close with, everybody, to the point where, through the years they helped me out, just, pinpointing, things that they know, back in that time, to help me out when it comes to now. So
Was there ever any scenarios where you didn't train uh, with HCW and maybe try to reach out, or was it always let me train here, this is home kind of thing?
yeah, no, that's what it was. It was always home. I never tried to reach out to a promotion to train to do a show. It was always home. It was always home. I when I got older, around the time frames when I was getting opportunities and stuff, I would reach out, but like that came so far down the line. Like at an early age though, it was more of just, being comfortable in my own space, and training with my family.
Before you actually debut and participate in your first matchup, was there ever any like doing refereeing or commentary or working like other facets of the industry before you actually got in the ring and participated in front of a crowd?
Yeah, man. I ring announced.
Nice, nice.
So that kind of got me a little bit better on the mic.
Hmm.
Um, and entertainment is a big part of professional wrestling. So you gotta have not only the skills, but you gotta have the mic. You gotta have you know the stardom. You gotta be an industry guy. Like, ring announcing helped me out a lot. Not only in front of being in front of a crowd, but like I said, mic skills and all that. So yeah, ring announcing was my main thing. I never refed. I never was any type of manager, which I'm kind of disappointed in. But over time, I learned refing and how that works also. So
So like you start training at 8 years old.
yeah.
How long before you actually, or how old were you before you actually made your debut?
So 18. So you got to think, from 8 to 18, 10 years of nothing but training. And that's why, like, now people be like, man, your IQ is just so high. And I'm like, man, I've been training for a long time. So it's like, a lot of people get it in 6 months. And yeah, I might have got it in 6 months, but shoot, I couldn't do anything until I hit 18. Virginia is a licensed state, so I couldn't really get my license until 18. So when I hit 18, I actually didn't even have my first match in Virginia. I had it when I came to Georgia. That was literally my debut, first match.
So, did you debut as Dallas Dash? I know some guys they start under one persona and then
Yeah,
maybe they figure that didn't work out so well and they move to something else.
yeah. So my first original name was Dallas Star,
Okay,
and the this I tell this story all the time. My name came from, I was a big fan of the Cowboys. Now I'm a Broncos fan now, but I started off liking the Cowboys, and that's where the name came from. And starting off, it was cool, being that I was a kid, just having fun, just going through the motions of wrestling and entertaining the crowd. I also had to think, like, okay, if this is something I'm gonna do, then I gotta make it make sense. So the switch happened, not during the debut, but as 2 years into it, that's when that
yeah,
that switch happened.
perfect.
Yeah,
So, I mean, just as far as just looking into your debut, I really like examining debuts because looking
yeah,
back on
let's
that
do it.
first match is always fun. When did you find out, hey, that this is going to be your moment? You're going to get out there in front of the crowd for the first time.
So I was in Virginia training. Boom. I had a couple training matches before I had my actual debut, but I had came to Georgia, and me and my mom, we were sitting on the couch, and she was like, "Hey, you gotta find something to do." Like, and I told her, I said, "Hey, I want to wrestle. I want to do this, and I want to do it at the highest level. I want to try to find a promotion around here, to work for or at least train with, And she was like, "Okay, we can hit up a couple promotions, and we can see what's to it." So around that time, I got a message from Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment, and my guy Murder One. That's like the guy who gave me that opportunity, and we talked, and he was like, "Hey, I got a promotion, a school that you can come down to, and let's see what you got." And I'm like, "Okay." So that the day comes, I got all my a lot of people always say that always make sure you have your gear. That's kind of the main rule with wrestling when you go to other promotions, or if you go to just even watch a show, always have your gear. And so I packed my gear. We had me and my mom, we went to the place, and we pulled up to the 5-star Marriott downtown Atlanta. It was really nice. We had went in, big sign says Southern Fried Gaming Convention. So I'm like, where the hell am I? I'm thinking I'm going to like a training facility. And when we get up there, they give us our passes and stuff like that. We go up the escalator, and I actually see the ring, and I'm like, okay, this is a show. This is a show. This is real time right here. I'm thinking I'm at a training. This is an actual show. My mind went there first. So I met Murder. He took me in the back and made me meet some of the guys, and then everything was all good, man. I was so nervous, and I had forgot my other kick pad, so it was like I had to like mismatch pads and stuff. It was a lot, man. And I ended up meeting the guy that I worked that night. His name is CB Suave. He's retired now. He actually works for the Savannah Bananas, which is pretty
Nice.
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, which is pretty dope, man. And we chopped it up, and he didn't realize I was 18 at the time. He was like, "Man, you're young. You got all this energy and stuff." So, um, match happens. He comes out first. They boo him. They get in there. So I'm like, I didn't really realize it until that moment. Like, I'm about to go out, and I'm about to wrestle in front of a lot of people. I just didn't realize how many people it was until I actually came out the curtain. It was like 2,000 people in that ballroom, man. It was a lot of folks in there. And that moment, it was just like, it was so real, because I'm like, yo, this is everything that I could, imagine. And this is like what I've been training for. And, the match happens, everything goes well. He picks up the win. And when I got in the back, everybody just congratulated me, man. Like, you're good, man. You do your thing, And it just felt good. It felt good that to have a good debut, but it also felt good to receive the love from not only the fans but from my opponent, from the locker room. And that's kind of a pivotal moment that I was like, okay, this is something that I want to do. This is something that I want to pursue. as a career. So
Did you after that? Did you get to come back and do more events with them, or was it
yeah,
just a
I
one off?
actually, it's so crazy that match happened on the Saturday, and they loved the match so much that the next day they had a day two, and I was able to do a Royal Rumble
Nice.
with them that day. And it's so crazy because at the time frame I didn't know everybody in the independent scene, but on that show you had Calvin Tankman was on that card,
He's a
which
beast.
is yeah, and me and him had a whole conversation in the back, and I didn't even realize that I was speaking to Calvin Tankman. Yeah, no, it was crazy.
So, I mean, something I'm really curious about is like going through your Instagrams and stuff. You would end up being HCW tag team champion. You'd end up going on further and becoming their world champion. What did it mean for you to not only just get gold within your Pops' promotion, but to climb all the way through the ranks from tag team wrestler all the way up to the top of the card and hold kind of raise the flag for your
Yeah,
Pops' promotion?
it was good, man. Now a lot of people was like, man, some all of the haters out there was like, man, you get handed a lot, and I'm like, dude, y'all don't realize it took me like 3 years to even get a world championship shot. Like it took a long time for me to even get that, and that's just from me saying like, I don't get handed anything, bro. Like I work for a lot of things, and my pops he made me work for that shot, and he thought it was just the right time, and everything goes into that one thing. So just me getting that opportunity and me actually capitalizing on the opportunity, it felt good. It felt good to finally be the leader. And around that time, when I first got the world championship, I started to book the shows,
Okay.
and it was more of like I only kept it up for like 6 months, and I had dropped it because I'm like, I don't need it. Like I want to showcase everybody, and for it to help me out with my booking, and to say, hey, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. Like, I didn't keep it for a long time only because, I just felt like I didn't need it. I'm already, a fan favorite in the company. Ticket sales and all that stuff, was there. So it was just like I just didn't need it, man. I wanted to showcase the younger, guys that, been doing it, only a couple months, 1 year. So I would rather make sure they shine, rather than me. So
I want to dive into the booking aspect, but
yeah,
before I forget, I want to touch on this because it's kind of interesting. You kind of bring up like the haters and the people that are gonna say whatever about you making it to world title and making it into that picture. It I was the other day I was listening to Cody do an interview. I can't remember with who off the top of my head, but they were discussing nepotism in wrestling and how Cody was just explaining sometimes having a parent or a family member or somebody in the industry with you can make it twice as hard
yeah.
because you get that stigma that everything's handed to you, and so therefore you have to work 2, 3, 4, 10 times more than other people just to get opportunities. Is that something that you felt you had to face when coming into this industry?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Like I said, I mean, my dad was, one of those guys who took a lot of heat from, other people in the business because he was running a promotion. So being a promoter's son, of course, you're gonna have to eat some of those words and eat some of those things because at the end of the day, you care about your promotion. You care about home. And talking about home, it could be hard sometimes. That's why I just try to block out the outside noise and just focus on what we're doing. How can we make our product better? How can we do this and it take us to new levels and new heights? So the haters and stuff, no, they really didn't matter, man. I kind of looked past that. A lot of people didn't even want to like book me back home, because of me working with him, and it was tough for sure because I didn't really get those looks in VA how I was supposed to. But that's why you venture out. Eventually, you venture out and you do other bookings and stuff like that. to showcase, your skills and what you got. And that's what, led me, here to now. So yeah.
What led to you getting the opportunity to help participate in booking shows, and kind of what was that experience like? Obviously you're young, so
Yeah.
usually that's something that's afforded to somebody who's been in the industry longer.
Yeah.
Which I mean, technically, I guess you are like a 15-year vet if we're being technical. So like, just what was that experience like for you?
No, look, man, I'm a green bean. All right. I'm only in year 7. I feel like it's still so much more to learn, and still much more opportunity to, grow. But like around that time of me booking, I think it was, what you said, just, the age, wrestling evolves over time and is going to continue to evolve. So, just having that fresh mindset on, when it comes to booking shows and, what the crowd wants to see and what matches they want to see, what matchups they want to see. I think it was just the mindset, the fresh mindset and the young mindset of, the evolution of that around that time. So that's what, made me want to get into the writing, behind the scenes stuff. So
Whose idea was it? Was it yours or was it other people's?
Um, me, Pop, and other general manager Kevin Weston. We all sat down. We was like, okay, if I'm gonna give you the book, you gotta make sure everybody is down for all this what you got in your mind, and it was kind of just a company decision
Okay.
more.
Is it something you still do, or was it something you decided to
Yeah,
separate
no,
from?
no. One thing about it, it got to the point. One thing about it, man, booking is stressful because you have to deal with people and you have to deal with emotions and you have to deal with egos, and it gets stressful sometimes. It's not something that that's a challenge for me, because at the end of the day, everything worked out, just the way it wanted to do, and everybody was happy. Everybody was kept happy. I booked for at least like 2 years before I finally, was like, hey, here, I'm going to pass this back. Let me focus strictly on wrestling. And now, I left Virginia. I'm here in Georgia now, so it's strictly wrestling now.
It's cool to talk about like the booking thing.
Yeah.
Um, just like when I first started doing the podcast, actually, I was early on. I was asked to be on somebody's podcast, like as a guest, and I thought it was for the podcast, which we plugged the podcast, but it was actually because at the time, as like a little hobby, I was doing like stop motion stuff with action figures, just as fun,
Right.
and they thought it was really interesting because they've talked to promoters and bookers and wrestlers. So it was like, what's it like, booking and try to make stories with action figures and stuff. And like I explained it, and I was like, the easiest thing is I don't have to go to a guy or whoever and say, hey, I
Right.
want you to lose to this guy, or I want you to drop the belt to this guy. They're toys, like they don't argue. And they was like, that's definitely got to be the easiest part, is
Right.
not actually dealing with human beings. I was like, yeah, I get to tell stories without the headache or the stress.
Yeah.
And so like I commend you for being able, because for one, booking a show without even asking, hey, is this okay, is tough. Because you're like,
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
gauge, is the audience going to like this? Is, how's this going to react? How's this moment going to be perceived? Which I know it sounds dumb because I'm talking about toys, but
No, no,
there's
no.
still a similar comparison. Like
Yeah,
I
for sure.
getting feedback from the audience, and they're like, "Hey, that was dumb. That was really good, though." Things like that. I can only imagine the added layer of dealing with the boys and girls in the back,
Yeah.
whether they agree 100%. I'm sure they all come up with their own ideas and own strategies. What was it like for you being so young, trying to navigate through all the different personalities and trying to make your vision uh, kind of happen at the same time?
I think it was all about trust. Like, I mean, like I said, I grew up, with those guys for a long time. So it's just like, they was like, hey, if you're gonna do this, of course they gave their, the ideas, their 2 cents on, a couple of things. And, of course I had help. I'm young guy booking shows and stuff like that. So I can't give all myself the credit, but there was some things that I was just like, you know what, this is going to work. Like if you just trust me, this is going to work, and this is going to get a great pop, great reaction, not only for you but for me and behind the scenes. So it's just trust, and I think we established that over time of the 2 years that I was, booking, and yeah, that was kind of the biggest thing, just trust.
So like, just I know we kind of touched on a little earlier. Um, what was your experience like trying to break out and get into new promotions to showcase your talent, whether it was in the Virginia area, the Atlanta area? Like, what was it like just for you? Because you hear all the time. Sometimes people get out there and it's really easy. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's the hardest thing in the world to get out there. What was your experience like with just trying to really make that name for yourself?
I think it was just networking. Meeting new people. Like, I mean, you start with one and then you end with many. Like it's like the first one of the first places that I broke out to was Firestar Pro Wrestling. And I got a chance to go there and work on a afterburn show, something light, and meeting Braun for the first time. Me and him are like, we're like this now. We're locked in. So doing that, and then like I said, I was able to meet a couple other guys that was in there that did other shows somewhere. So just meeting meeting that guy, meeting another guy, networking, and then getting other opportunities on other shows and stuff like that. That was kind of the main thing for me. It took a minute, took a minute, and then take like right then and there. But being that I was so experienced, a lot of promotions they look at experience, and they look at what could you possibly bring to this promotion, like what can you do to entertain this crowd, and just doing it for so long, I think that was kind of the main thing. Now a lot of people was like, hey, you need to venture out. Like, staying home under the circumstances that you're under, being a promoter son and not getting those opportunities in your hometown. Like the only way to make it is if you get them reps and you get that film and just, actually start to wrestle and be in the ring. So that was kind of the biggest thing. I had motivation from a lot of people. A lot of my family was like, hey, you gotta go do it. If you want it, you gotta go do it. So
You kind of talk about you just trying to get out there and like make that name for yourself and get out of home. Something I've noticed from going to multiple independent shows like in the Chicago area
yeah,
is like a lot of these independents will run very similar and tight knit like communities. Like one
yeah.
will be like one town over, like or suburb over, to where I mean you're literally like 20 minutes away from each other, and just seeing how maybe one crowd reacts to maybe a homegrown star, and then that homegrown star goes over to X promotion, and they got to start at the bottom, and like the crowd, some of them might know this person, but others don't. Um, what was it like for you to maybe jump from one show to the other and then submit, hey, I'm worth being here, like I'm somebody that deserves to be on this card, I'm somebody that can take this brand to the next level? Like what goes into that mindset of trying to, I guess, connect with a different audience each time? Because I mean, you look at, like, for instance, WWE, it's got to be a lot easier because you're in front of so many people.
Yeah.
But like on the independents, there's a chance you're only seen by those 100 to a couple thousand people that are in that venue. How do you just really make sure that they walk out of the building saying Dallas Dash was the next guy?
Just being myself. I have an amazing story, behind not Dallas Dash, but just myself. And Dallas, like I said, the alter ego is he's just authentic. Is I try to go to every show and every promotion with before the show even start, great locker room etiquette. Like I go in there, meet everybody. I'm at the end of the day, I'm just excited to be there, but just to see how y'all run things differently after, being in a promotion for so long that I know exactly, what we do. Like just going to those new promotions and just seeing how they do new things and see how they run things, man. It's pretty cool just being in those moments. So yeah, just having great locker room etiquette, man. Go in there, shake everybody's hand, meet everybody, uh, talk to my opponent, make him feel comfortable. We go through the match or whatever, and we go out there and perform. And then as far as the crowd, like I said, they see me come out, cowboy hat, chaps, got the tape on, got the cow belt. Like it's just a lot of people don't see the whole black cowboy gimmick that often. So it's just like for me to do it and for me to, be flashy with it and just, having a good impact on the crowd, man, energy and it's really all about the energy. When you're in that ring, gotta be energized and you gotta connect. You gotta connect with those fans so that way, they leave happy, you leave, knowing that you did your job that night. And that's kind of the big thing and the mindset that I have at every single event that I go to.
Perfect. Perfect. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Something I'm really curious about is before we got on here, we kind of briefly discussed HCW's turn to R1W.
Yeah.
What did that look like, both behind the scenes and in front of the audience?
Um, so we've been ACW for so long, and a lot of people asked, hey, what was the switch about? The round one wrestling, and it was more of just a brand thing. Like that he runs not only boxing but wrestling. So boxing was round one, and he was like, you know what, like, hey, we can just put everything under one.
Yeah.
So round one, I mean, HCW turned into round one wrestling, and that switch for the crowd, it was new because, like I said, we've been HCW for so long. But I think they kind of like, they kind of gravitated towards it, moving, on down the line. So it wasn't a hard switch, but it was a lot of getting used to, and then just bringing in new characters, new guys, to lighten up, the roster a little bit, so they won't see the same, people every show. It was like, okay, this is something that could potentially go a long way. So yeah, that switch wasn't hard at all. That switch was pretty easy.
So I mean, with the switch now it being round one wrestling, um, do you have any like certain goals you'd like to achieve, now that I don't want to say everything's different, but for the most part everything it's a completely new landscape. Like,
Yeah.
do you have any idea of what Dallas Dash wants to do within round one?
So I'm not in Virginia no more. Round one will always be my home.
Okay.
But I'm not there anymore. I left the company to them guys, and I want them to understand that I'm always here. I'm always gonna be a part of round one. But Dallas Dash has to you know, take this thing to a whole new level. I feel like I'm like I said, I'm in year 7, and this is the year that I just focus strictly on me and focus strictly on just taking my game to the next level, so that way I can reach back and say, hey, I got some young guns in Virginia that they can you know do this thing at the highest level. Somebody gave me an opportunity, and I'm always willing to reach back and say, "Hey, look, this is where it's at, and this is what it is." So yeah, no, I left those guys in Virginia. I'm currently here in Georgia, and like I said, this year is just all about going through the tour with CCP, um, trying to find a promotion here in Georgia. To work for a home promotion, whenever I'm not on the road doing the shows with CCP, and yeah, that's kind of the main thing right now for me.
Definitely. I know from like talking to other talent down there in the Georgia area,
Yeah.
specifically like Atlanta. I know the WWA4 is a lovely promotion. AR Fox runs that.
Yeah.
There's Action Wrestling down there, just to name a couple. Do you have any independents down there that you really have your eye on that you'd like to try to get a foot in the door?
I've heard a lot about AR's Fox School. I've heard a lot about Action, Renegade.
Okay.
I've Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment. Like I said, it's been a long time with them, so it's all about starting at the bottom. Like I feel like I'm at the bottom, and I don't mind being there because I hadn't been there so many times. So just making my name out here, getting the name out first, and then making my name by getting those reps and building up to it. Like I'm all in for it, man. I'm all in about, just showcasing what I got when I do get that opportunity to be with these promotions. So
Perfect. We've brought up CCP podcasting and Chris Page numerous times. Um, Quick shout out: we got 2 episodes on the podcast with Chris. Go check those out. I've also been on his. Go check that out. But how did you get your start? Kind of working with Chris. How did that introduction come about? And yeah, we'll start with that. We'll go from there.
okay. So I met Chris back last year in October,
Okay.
and we just connected through conversation, and um I ended up going on the CCP podcast for the first time, and we talked, and we had a great podcast. And from then it was just like, hey, like something between me and him just connected, and I don't know what it is. God bring people in your life for a reason. So me and him just connected, man. And back last year in November, I did the first CCP show in Orlando, Florida, at Chapter One Genesis, and that was Chris's first time actually seeing me work like live. And like I said, after the show when I performed, he loved it, and we just connected again. And uh, last year in December, he ended up coming uh, to my house in Georgia, and just talking to my mom and talking to my family. It was such a surreal moment because I'm like, man, this is literally my freaking boss. And like having these conversations with my family about how this year is going to go, wrestling and life, it was just a lot, man. And we just from that day forward, it was just like, man, that's like my freaking, that's my wrestling dad right there, man. That's like he's just a good guy, man. He's a hell of a person, but also just a hell of a mindset. And it's just like, man, I'm so grateful for that guy, because not only did he give me my first, opportunity in Florida, but gave me my first, showcasing of, okay, this kid is, he's good. Not only is he good, but he has the confidence, and he has the skill set and the mindset to do this on the highest levels. And he didn't put me in position to meet so many new people, and speak to so many new faces, and just build connections with people. So I definitely appreciate that, dude. Shout out to Chris. Oh, big
Yeah.
head.
Shout out to Chris. I he's it's funny because he told me the same story on the podcast. It actually dropped today
Yeah,
as we're recording this. And he just talked about traveling, coming up to see. He stopped by to see you and talk to your family.
yeah,
It's got to mean a lot to have somebody who's, for one, he's been in and around this business for so long. Former wrestler himself. He's really trying to take the podcasting world and the wrestling world by storm. To have somebody like that be so willing to invest in you, it's
yeah,
got to feel really good. We talked Chapter One Genesis. I believe you're a part of the world title tournament, if I'm correct.
yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
I gotta assume that your eyes are on that championship.
yeah.
Um, I don't believe the whole field's been played out yet. I could be wrong, but for all of those who are also participating in this tournament, what do you got to say to them on your climb to becoming? I'm going to say the first CCP podcasting heavyweight champion.
Did you see that belt?
It's beautiful. I loved it
Be-
so much. We talked about it.
Beautiful.
It's cool.
Beautiful.
Before you answer, a little caveat. Um, I really just the title design is so unique because
Yeah.
like it's a belt we've seen before, but it wasn't showcased a lot on TV. Like it looks like the
Yeah.
old WWF title, and I believe only like one or two people, maybe only one, held it. And I don't think it was ever actually like used for an extended period of time. So it's really cool to see that, and for him to put his own spin on it's badass.
Yeah. No, it's definitely big for him and big for the promotion. Chris said all the time, I'm not a wrestling promotion. We're just a podcast, and I'd be like, dude, I don't want to hear it, man. You didn't had your first show, and it's gonna continue to grow, throughout this year having this tour, man. So the world championship, like I told Chris, man, I don't focus on titles, man. I focus on strictly, just being in a position to where I can, of course, work and entertain the crowd and just get them to, come to these shows. Not only for myself, but for everybody that's on that roster, man. And just being in this position, I said, at each show that I do, I'm gonna work my ass off, and I'm gonna, make sure that I go out there and do my job. So when it comes to that world title, I get a Dallas Dash character real quick. Um, just know I'm coming. I'm coming for everything. I wanted everything. I want it all, and I feel like being in this spot is all it's gonna do is just drive me to make me want to compete at the highest level. If I do be at that top spot, I'm gonna make sure that every single show that whoever I'm standing face to face across that ring with, I'm gonna make sure they work. And they gotta work for that. Cause I'm gonna do whatever it takes and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that strap stay with me. So
Badass, badass.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm pretty sure you've been announced or scheduled to be at pretty much all of the upcoming announced
So
CCP podcasting shows, whether that's in Orlando, whether that's in Texas, whether that's in California. What's it like mean to you to now, I mean, technically be a part of or associated with two traveling brands, whether it's One Division Pro, whether it's CCP Podcasting? You have the potential to really take not only these promotions by storm, but the nation by storm. Is that
yeah.
something that excites you?
Hell yeah. I I waited my turn, man. I waited my turn for a long time. And all I had to do in those moments of me waiting was just continue to work, continue to block out the noise and just focus on me and focus on, myself. So I'm pretty excited, man, just to get a chance to, not only do the 1DP show, but do this whole tour with um CCP. And a couple of the shows, I don't know if you know, but a couple of the shows for this year's CCP, when we go down out to Cali, I'm doing Millennium Pro Wrestling on the night before
Okay.
CCP, and just getting a chance to work with, I feel as if the best promotion in the West Coast. Uh, it's pretty big for me and it's pretty so real because I mean, as a wrestler, you always dream of, you know, going to do something like that. And this is gonna be my first time even going to California. It's my first time even going to Texas. So just to get a chance to finally do something that I wanted to do and not to just go there, but to go there and do something that I love to do. It's pretty exciting, man. So I'm ready.
You know, I gotta ask, just out of curiosity, a little fun caveat question.
Yes, sir.
If we're thinking about your career so far as a whole, you've been doing this at pretty top level for 7 years now. Um, what's It's a two-part question. What's your favorite match so far of your career, and what's your favorite moment?
Ooh. Um, so I'll think a little bit on the match, but I can tell you my favorite moment. My favorite moment was in 2022. I had went to Memphis, Tennessee, for the first time, and I was able to do my first time. big time indie event. And on that card it had Alberto Del Rio, EC3, Chris Masters, uh, Austin Aries, and Helico was on that card. And I think that was kind of the first time like I was starstruck, but I would say I was more cool, calm, and collective. Like, and when you're a wrestler, being in the locker room with those guys that you used to watch on TV, it was it was so real for sure. But obviously you're doing something right if you're in the same locker room as those guys that you used to watch on TV. And I sat down. Me and Del Rio locker was literally right next to each other, so I got the chance to sit down with Del Rio, and me and him had like a long conversation. He just gave me so much good advice on just what to do, how the way to move in this business. And I got a crazy fact that Ferrari that he had pulled up in the red one, Vince had brought it for him on the lot that night for like 1 mil. So
Gee,
that's a crazy Del Rio fact that y'all don't know.
that's
Um,
fantastic.
so yeah, that was kind of my biggest moment, like just being in an atmosphere where, I can meet, a guy like Austin Aries, somebody that I used to watch, EC3, Chris Masters, just me and him having that moment of flexing and just talking trash and just being about Del Rio. So that was a pretty cool moment for me. Match wise, um, I got a chance to face the sharpest blade, Chris Lade, um, in West Virginia at a company promotion called ATCW, and that was probably one of my craziest matches because he's been there before. He Matt Riddle, Rich Swann, Kalisto, like guys like that he done went up against. So just me even getting the opportunity to go up against somebody like that, high level, that was pretty cool. Another one of my favorite matches. I was in a fatal five way at Firestar, and I was in there with Drew Hood. I was in there with Dynamite Jackson. I was in there with JP Lehman and Blade Brown. That was a pretty cool match too, because that was a lot of different styles in one ring, and that's what made that fun. And I would say one of my favorite matches from back home at HCW R1W, since we've been talking. Um, I fought my dad in a Russian train match, and that was pretty cool because we have fought for the nationwide international championship, and it was dope, man. I think that night a lot of people was like, "Yo, that was pretty crazy." Like, so those the three. I got a lot of them. I didn't had a lot of matches, but those three is like my top one.
Is there any sort of nerve going into, I mean, I'm assuming there's nerve, but like what is the mentality going into a match with your dad?
Um, with my dad is crazy. I would say I don't know. Like I said, that's my dad at the end of the day. Like, of course, we're two guys standing face to face across the ring from each other to entertain the crowd, but that's my dad. So of course we're always gonna have chemistry. So I feel like that's kind of the only match that I don't have the nerve. Like I don't I
Okay.
know for a fact we're gonna go out there and we're gonna put on a hell of a show. Like he's an entertainer, I'm an entertainer, so it just gels together at the end of the day. So that's kind of the only match that like I don't have those nerves before.
Okay. I gotta ask, you also bring up West Virginia, which is actually where I'm from. I was born
That's
and
what's up,
raised in
man.
West Virginia.
Yeah,
I moved up here to the Rockford, Chicago area when I was about 10, 11, somewhere in there.
that's what's up.
Um, I remember growing up as a kid, and from talking to you guys, West Virginia's got to be one of the craziest. They have some of the
Oh
craziest
boy,
crowds
yeah.
you can imagine. What's your experience working in front of a West Virginia crowd?
Y'all look, I'm not gonna lie. I wrestled two shows with ATCW. The first time, the second time I had wrestled Slade, but the first time I had wrestled Tiberius Asante, is another big indie name. And the first time working in front of a West Virginia crowd, it was kind of, I would say it was kind of comfortable for me because there was so many guys on that card that I already had knew, like personally. Like either I met them, when I was younger, or guys that, I done just ran across. So I felt comfortable locker room wise, just going to that show. But when I came out the curtain, I didn't think that they would accept me, as good as they did, only because of course I had a new look, new gimmick, new face, and it was everything that I definitely could have hoped for or expected from a West Virginia crowd. Man, they were hot, they were rowdy. Some words was exchanged. Can't really get into that,
Yeah.
and it was dope, man. It was dope. They are some people that are going to either get behind you or boo you
Yeah.
bad,
They
and
either love you or hate you, and there's
yeah,
no
they're
in
gonna love or
between.
hate you. And it was fun getting a chance to work in front of a West Virginia crowd, because just like you, I've heard the stories even before I went there. Like, they're gonna be on you. They're
It's gonna
gonna
be
they're
tough.
gonna yeah. So it was pretty dope, man. Pretty fun getting a chance to work in front of a West Virginia crowd.
It's always fun and exciting to talk about because I mean I haven't been to a wrestling show in West Virginia probably since I was like 9 years old. So
Yeah.
we're going on like I don't know 16 years, which is crazy to say out loud. But from what I've heard, it hasn't changed. It's the same exact
Mm-mm.
feel. The West Virginia people that are in West Virginia and they love their professional wrestling. They love their professional wrestling. That's
Wrestling.
it's real to them. They ain't playing no games. And I always just hear so many times from legends in this business down to guys that are just starting that sometimes the West Virginia crowds are just so much fun because you don't know what to expect. Like I've had people come on here and say, "Yeah, I've been stabbed." Like I've gone to a wrestling show and either almost been stabbed or got stabbed, and like it's crazy. But then there's
Yeah.
also the ones that they'll go out of their way to make sure you know that they love you 100%.
Right.
And for me, it's always cool to talk about it because I remember going as a kid and like going with my dad, and my dad heckled the wrestlers. And like, for instance, Too Tough Tony, notable independent name. My dad only called him Teabag Tony. That was his name. And like he had 4 or 5 year old me saying it to him, and they'd be face to face, ready to fight.
Yeah.
And it was great. And I always just thought that's how wrestling shows were
Yeah,
until
man.
I went to like you come out here to Chicago, and that don't get me wrong, the crowds are insane, but it's not that insane. Like
Yeah, no.
it's a completely different feel. And I guess you could probably back me on this. If you haven't been to a wrestling show or an independent show in the state of West Virginia, if you're a wrestling fan, you should probably go one.
Got to, for sure.
Just as we're dwindling this down, we are, just in January 26th. We got 11 months to go. I'm sure you got a lot of things planned.
Yeah,
We
man.
talked a little bit about this journey that you're about to partake with CCP podcasting and all the chapters that are coming up this year. What are some of your biggest goals that you'd like to achieve within 2026, whether that's wrestling new promotions? I know you said you're not big on championships, but are there any titles that you'd like to get, travel anywhere? Like where is Dallas Dash's head going throughout this year?
So first, like I said, just trying to get on, a home promotion here in Georgia. It's kind of the first like, I would say small but big goal. Like I said, starting from the ground up, and I'm willing to do that. So that's first. Um, to just be healthy, because it's a lot of dates and it's a lot of shows and a lot of matches that I'm partaking in this year. So it's just like, just trying to keep my body right, keep my mind right, my mental, and just focus on that, sharpening my skills and my IQ. And because it's a lot of, not only is a lot of matches coming up, but it's a lot of guys who I'm facing that's been there and done that, and that's been doing it a long time. So it's like it's just sharpening my skills for those guys. Um, Matches wise, I'm trying to have literally the best matches possible, with these guys. And show wise, it's a couple of promotions that I want to do this year. Millennium Pro Wrestling was one, so that was kind of one that I marked off the list. Um, trying to expand. I want to do an international show either at the end of this year or the start of next year. So that's where the focus and the mindset is right now of Dash.
Is there like a play international is broad? So we talking Europe, we talking Japan, we
Yeah.
talking where does Dallas Dash want to go internationally?
Oh man, everywhere. Europe, Japan. I even want to expand to Africa. Like it's a lot of things that I want to do. Like even traveling to Canada. If just going to Canada to wrestle, like that's always been a dream of mine. Just to wrestle one international show in my career. Like that's kind of the goal for me.
Okay. I know just watching your stuff, talking to you, having this conversation, I'm sure you got a lot more than one in your future.
Yeah.
At 24 years of age, just about to hit 25, I wouldn't be surprised if we see you on our television sometime in the future. Dallas, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for making this happen.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm glad you could come on here.
Thank you.
Um, Before I let you go, you want to shout out your social medias one more time, just in case, sometimes we're hard at hearing, we wasn't listening, whatever. Like, how distracted we are as human beings these days.
Uh, yeah, man. You can go follow me on Instagram at Dallas X Dash. I'm on YouTube as Dallas X Dash. You can go preview some of my stuff up there, all the new things and stuff that's coming up in there. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Shout out to. Can we do shout outs? We do shout
Yes,
out.
shout out. Do your
Shout
thing.
out to back home R1W in Virginia, Round One Wrestling. Shout out to any of the promotions that I work for. Uh, Thank you for just putting me in a position where I can do podcasts and share my experiences and stuff with you guys. Shout out to CCP. Shout out to Chris. Shout out to the CCP family. Shout out to you, my guy, for just having me on here.
Of course.
And shout out to anybody that's gonna be in Dallas Dash future, man. So yeah. Oh, and shout out God too. We need him.
Of course, all praise to God.
Yeah.
That's definitely how we end all these, especially the live streams. My pops is a minister. He runs a nonprofit out here, so you got to throw that in there. I just want to real quick, like just throwing it out. Chris Page, CCP Podcasting. Go check out Dallas Dash's interview on there. You've been on some other episodes and done some other things with
Yeah.
Chris. Go check those out. Just pay attention. Dallas Dash is doing great things in 2026. He's not stopping. Thank you, man. I look forward
Yes,
to
sir.
catching up with you down the line. As I always do, I'm going to leave the door open and just leave this at see you next time, my friend.
Thank you, man.